I'm going live now. Donald Trump's sister has died. The First Amendment apparently no longer applies in the state of New York, and Latin voters are siding with Donald Trump, which has Democrats in arms. Welcome to the Breakaway USA live show. I'm Fabian, and of course, we have Gentry with me. Michael is not here today, but a lot of big things happening in the news today. And why don't we get right into it, actually?
So Trump's sister has passed away at 86 from a heart attack.
Yeah, it's sad. It's sad whenever someone passes away.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to me, one of the interesting things is people with that much money shouldn't be passing away from heart attacks. I mean, you can do coronary calcium scans, which scans the level of calcium deposits in your heart, which is essentially plaque. You can do stents. There's medications like RPK9s, like that. There's a lot of things you can do. I'm just very surprised that this happened to her. I don't know anything about her, but
so it was all of a sudden, probably, or she didn't get any checkups or whatever. Are we assuming some poke stuff, or are we not?
I don't know. That's a good one. That I don't know about, but it's going to invigorate the people who are saying he's too old. But then you can't really use that argument because Biden is in the same. I mean, Biden's much further along the mental degradation and the mental decline than Trump is. So,
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, Biden is tripping downstairs and upstairs.
and upstairs.
He's fallen off bikes. He's fallen off stages. I mean, in a lot of ways, this is elder abuse. Have you seen the video? We should have pulled this up before, but have you seen
The Olympics,
the presidential Olympics?
the presidential Olympics. That's what I was actually looking up right now.
Great minds think alike.
Oh yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
us.
But so I couldn't find that, but I did find when Trump made fun of Biden on how he was walking off stage.
Mhm.
Remember that?
Yeah.
He's like he can't even walk off stage. He doesn't know which way to go. I mean, look, whether you support Biden or Trump, that's just funny. Like you got to have humor in politics because it's just so ridiculous. Every single thing that happens in politics is just ridiculous. So
My favorite trolls that Trump has done, though, has been the golf shots, and then it hits Biden on the head, and then he falls.
that's a good one too.
That's my
That's a really good one.
all-time favorite. When he first started doing that, I died. I thought it was a fantastic video.
One of my favorites is when George Bush he's golfing and he says what he says something like we will stop terrorism everywhere we can, and he goes, all right, now watch a shot. And he just swings the golf club and he just rips one.
It was epic. He gave this like epic speech about stopping terrorism. Like, we're the U.S., we're going to dominate. Now watch this shot.
Actually, let me actually play it here because that I hated Bush when I was when he was in office, and oh, that's not it there. And I was really, it was hard to laugh when I saw that because I disliked him so much. But I mean, like I said, comedy is comedy. So all right, so let's get it up. So Bush terrorism golf here.
Stressed to hear about the latest suicide bombers in Israel. We're going to yearn for peace in the Middle East. For those in the Arab lands, for those in Europe, for those all around the world who yearn for peace, we must do everything we possibly can to stop the terror. There are a few killers who want to stop the peace process that we have started, and we must not let them. For the sake of humanity, for the sake of the Palestinians who suffer, for the sake of the Israelis who are under attack, we must stop the terror. I call upon all nations to do everything they can to stop these terrorist killers. Thank you. Now watch this drive.
Oh man.
Gosh.
You know, I actually didn't know that that was about the Israeli-Palestine conflict back then. So it's actually very topical that we're watching it now. I thought it was something about Afghanistan or Iraq.
Yeah, yeah. Just to clear some air, like that clip is really funny. I personally am not a fan of George W. Bush
Not at all.
or George H.W. Bush. There's been a lot of stuff that's come out that he's part of the establishment, part of the deep state. I mean, there's even speculation that George H.W. Bush, when he was the head of the CIA, was in charge of killing JFK. So
Yeah, and there's videos of his dad. Well, it's actually Donald Rumsfeld out with what's his face from Iraq, the leader, Saddam Hussein.
Mhm.
We all know the CIA funded him against Iran because they wanted the power dynamics to shift, and Iran was getting too strong, so they built up Iraq, and then they took him down afterwards. And just the horrible things that they did in that administration with the neocons and Paul Wolfowitz, and Dick Cheney shot someone in the face with a shotgun,
Mhm.
literally while hiking or
Mhm.
hunting rather.
Mhm.
Yeah, and all those people are still around, most of them.
Mhm.
So now I did want to actually talk about something that Elon Musk even himself replied to yesterday. There was New York Governor Kelly Hochul announced that she started conducting special media surveillance efforts to monitor hate speech. So whenever someone from the media or from the government starts speaking like this, I listen to every single word that they say because I know they're reading off a teleprompter most of the time, or they have notes. And there's subtleties in what they say. So instead of just listening to the entire, to the entire presentation, I really try to hone in on every single word that's said. So Elon Musk even commented on this. So let's watch it and see what she actually said.
To catch. Also, we're very focused on the data we're collecting from surveillance efforts. What's being said on social media platforms, and we have launched an effort to be able to counter some of the negativity and reach out to people when we see hate speech being spoken about on online platforms. Our media analysis, our social media analysis unit has ramped up its monitoring of sites to catch incitement to violence, direct threats to others. And all this is in response to our desire, our strong commitment to ensure that not only do New Yorkers be safe, but they also feel safe.
So there was a lot in what she said.
Also, we're very focused on the data.
Elon Musk actually responded, "The Constitution still applies in New York, no matter what any governor may say." So that
I
was
mean, my first question whenever they're talking about hate speech is, what is it? Can you
that's
define
exactly
it?
where I was going to go.
Can you define what hate speech is? Is it just speech that you hate, or is there certain criteria? Who's making the criteria, right? Because a lot of the freedom of speech that we have, a lot of people hate it, right? There's quite a few people that are hating that we're talking about this right now. Is this considered hate speech? I mean, we have the freedom of press, freedom of assembly, freedom of all this, like the freedom of religion, right? And so if you're going to try to put a caveat in there saying hate, like who's defining it? Is it going to be the loudest? Is it going to be the majority? Because even if it is like the majority or the populace, like even that falls into the groupthink or whatever, and then people's feelings get involved, and then you're like, oh, like I don't want you to call me fat, even though I am fat, even though that's the truth. So, like, is truth going to be censored?
That is a huge issue right now. They are concocting something called hate speech, which doesn't exist in the Constitution whatsoever. It's the antithesis of what the First Amendment says, and California has been trying to chip away at these things. So they're trying to, and I saw a poll of young people asking them about hate speech, and it's startling because a vast majority of them say we should outlaw hate speech, when in reality, these kids don't know that hate speech is not a thing. It's not a thing. It's a made up term to try to chip away at the freedom of speech. Case in point, let me point you to a California Assembly bill regarding social media. And let me go ahead and share this. I remember seeing this last year, September 13th, 2022, so just over a year ago. Newsom signs nation-leading social media transparency measure. So it will require social media companies to publicly post their policies regarding hate speech, disinformation, harassment, and extremism on their platforms, and report data on their enforcement of their policies. So basically, if you DM someone something, if you're in a conversation with something, or rather with someone, and they take it the wrong way, they can try to say that it's hate speech or that it's disinformation or it's conspiracy. So if you read down here just a little below, it says that social media is promoting, well, not promoting, but has a point in promoting hate speech, disinformation, conspiracy theories, and other dangerous content. So extremely dangerous. It's passed here in California, I believe, because he already signed it. Yeah. So it is passed. And this is from the website of Office of the Governor / Comrade Gavin Newsom.
Comrade. So I just put in the chat the First Amendment of the Constitution. So if you want to pull it up, because whatever Newsom just signed into law is absolutely unconstitutional. And I want to point something out too, because a lot of people don't necessarily understand the First Amendment and who it applies to. So I want to point that out. But let's read this here.
By the way, I love that it's just so short. Like there's no complexity to it. You read it and you understand what it is. So the people that are saying, well, you know, I'm a constitutional scholar and I believe that the First Amendment meant this. It's like, dude, there's really no way to misconstrue what it says. It says what it says, and it's short enough. So, all right.
So it says Congress, the First Amendment says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting free speech thereof, or bridging the freedom of speech or the press, or the right of the people to peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Essentially, what that means is government cannot compel our speech at all. So we do have the freedom to really say whatever we want. However, there is wisdom in not saying whatever you want to whoever, right? Because this law does not protect you against getting punched in the face by a private citizen, right?
Absolutely.
Like when I was in college, a bunch of my fraternity brothers would just run their mouth and get kicked out of bars, right? Does that mean that their First Amendment was violated? No, absolutely not. They were being jerks and dumbasses and just getting kicked out of bars for running their mouth. But the government can't just say, hey, you can't say that.
Absolutely. It's
I want to make that decision.
Yeah. They can't make you say anything, and they can't stop you from saying something. I think those are two really important things. So you can say anything, but you also can't be stopped from saying what you want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And it's you and I both, essentially everything we do on social media, as we're speaking now, that's only because we have the freedom of speech. You'd be surprised, and well, not you, but people listening, how many people contact me on social media from other countries in the DM, and they're like, you know, I love what you do. I'm a huge fan. I wish I could do that here. I wish I could speak up, but we don't have the kind of laws that you have there. So it's really incredible how people from other countries view the freedom of speech that we have, which is not, it's not something that's everywhere. A lot of people in the US think that, well, I mean, everyone must be able to do the same thing, but it's not engraved in the constitution of other countries like it is here. And yesterday we were talking about the fact that America is the last bastion of true freedom of expression like we have. And if they're able to chip away at that, which is what they're attempting to do, little by little, just like the way that they removed the Second Amendment, which we have from other countries, little by little, then we are. I mean, I really think the world is going to go to a very, very dark place that it may never get out of, because we have so much surveillance technology now that are made extremely hard for people who are trying to rebel, the way the American patriots did when they came to the U.S. And broke away from England. It'd be very hard to do the same thing that they did now with so much surveillance.
Oh, 100%. Well, even the White House and DHS and all these other three-letter agencies, what they're doing now, which should be pretty obvious by now, but what they're doing now is they're going into these big tech companies and they're influencing or saying, hey, can you get on our agenda to censor this person or censor this topic or censor this keyword or censor whatever, right? We saw a whole bunch of COVID tags, right? During 2020, like whenever I would post about COVID, I would have to use code words, right? Like use emojis or use different symbols to talk about it. Otherwise, it would get this COVID tag and saying, hey, this is what the CDC says about COVID. And like on one hand, like I get it, but because they're trying to like promote whatever, but obviously we know that there's an evil agenda going on. And so my question is, how is the US government getting around the First Amendment by going in and like appropriating these companies and trying to get them to censor us? Because these companies are private companies, right? The example I said before, where someone was a jerk and got kicked out of a bar, like that's like on a surface level, that's what they're doing. But on a grand scale, these social media companies, Meta, well, not Twitter anymore, but YouTube and Google and even Apple and Amazon and Netflix and all these like big companies, they're censoring people.
Yeah, and it comes down to the public-private partnership, which has been pushed for the last few decades, which is one of the biggest detriments to our establishment and democracy. And if you haven't heard about this, I encourage you to go on YouTube and just maybe research what is a public-private partnership. So instead of the government doing all these things that it can't do because it has restrictions, they then just go to private companies like Facebook, Amazon, Google, and have them do their dirty work. So while the government technically is not directly spying on you, even though we know they are, the social media companies and these companies are doing it for the government, and they're just giving them the data. That's a public-private partnership, and they're doing it to the detriment of everyone, essentially, because it gives them more control over them. And I also did want to get to something really interesting today. So for the Latin community, which I'm Latin, the media always had painted Trump in a very, very, very negative light. The entire 2016 campaign, for the presidential campaign, painted him in a very, very negative light. Now, the biggest channel in Spanish television is Univision. And apparently they were taken over in 2021 by some new people. And these people are very entrepreneurial, and they have a very different idea of, the way things should be. They're very close, apparently, with a lot of politicians in Latin America. So what they've done is they had Trump on an interview. And apparently the Democrats are very scared because they had this entire campaign centered around how Trump doesn't care about Latin people. Now, in the polls that have come out recently, you've seen that the Latin vote has drastically shifted over to Trump since the last election, and they were very scared. So I want to just show you what the interview was like, and then I want to read some of the comments. A lot of them are in Spanish, but I'll translate quickly because it's very telling, the shift that's happening, and it's very telling what happens when you have someone to talk directly to the people compared to when their words are misconstrued or changed with the middleman. So this is Trump on Univision 4 days ago, I believe.
Relationships with Mexico. Your president is a friend of mine. He's a tremendous man, He's been very loyal to me. I've been very loyal to him. We just got along. He's a little bit different. He's a little further left than I am, perhaps, but he's a great gentleman and a wonderful man.
Now, this is an hour and 11 minutes. And one thing that we've learned about long form content compared to the short sound bites is that you really get to understand the person that's speaking, because a sound bite can be, it's a sound bite. It's 10, 15 seconds, but this is an hour and 11 minutes long. And now some of the comments, this was in English, most professional interview I've seen in a long time. Then these are in Spanish. Great interview. The interviewer, he was very centered, professional, and he asks very good questions, and he let the interviewer talk. One of the best interviews. Univision represented the more dignity and respect than all other networks. Finally, they conduct a good interview. He did a great job of being engaging. This is a Spanish excellent president. Very professional interview. So all these comments are very positive. And there's a chat replay too. And I mean, the chat replay, I was going through it, and really there was nothing bad about him. It was all positive things. So that's very, very, very telling and very scary for the Democratic Party, which has held this Latin vote, but losing it little by little for so long.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's so interesting that his views on immigration has really been twisted to get at a lot of these communities, like the Latinos and Mexicans and all this other stuff. Because really, if you boil it down, he just wants to put Americans first, right? There's all these. I mean, we're even seeing the repercussions of having really loose immigration. Let's just let everyone in, but then you get weirdos coming out of Harvard that are trying to, campaign for Hamas, right? You get all these weirdos that don't necessarily assimilate, and so what I think Trump is doing is he's saying, I love all Americans, and I want Americans to be prosperous. I want them to live amazing lives. I want them to pay less taxes. I want them to have more freedom. And let's figure out how to take care of America first, because we can't take care of the rest of the world if our country is falling apart. When spending's out of control, we have millions coming through the border who aren't going to assimilate, right? We want to have like a period of non-immigration, not because we hate everyone else, but because we love America more, right? We have to take care of ourselves. There's one of my favorite quotes by a mentor of mine. He said, you have to take care of your mama before you can take care of Uganda. And that's it in a nutshell.
That's very true. And one thing that I do want to close with on my end is it's an incredible story that just happened to me. And it was so telling, because it's not something that you would typically associate with what's going to happen. So let me kind of explain. If you go to a Home Depot, pretty much anywhere around the country, there's a lot of people there that are like manual laborers. They're all mostly Latin, Mexican, Ecuadorian, Venezuelan, Cuban, whatever. Mm-hmm. And you go to the parking lot and they offer their services for the day. And I was moving, and so I came. I said, hey, I want two guys to help me out. Sure, I got like an older guy, not older, maybe in his early 50s, and then a younger guy in his late 20s. And so, they hop in the U-Haul and we start talking in Spanish. And you would think most people just put these people off. Okay, they're immigrants. They come here without papers. It's just working, right?
Yeah.
I asked the guy, I said, hey, man, what do you think has been happening, at the border and at the country, with America? And this guy goes, look, he goes, I brought 3 of my kids over the border. I pay the Coyotes $12,500 American dollars to get them over. I have one kid left in Mexico. He's like, the situation is horrible. He goes, this country is going to crap. He goes, the president has been, he goes, well, he specifically said the president, but he said, and the Democratic Party have been selling this country out for years, selling all the resources. And I felt like I was listening to this political commentator, and he was next to me in the U-Haul, sitting in the middle as they're driving to the place to go, move all the stuff. And this guy dropped more knowledge and real life experience than any Harvard grad that had, that has studied these books for 8 years or however long it took them to get their degree. And my mind was blown, and I didn't say anything. I didn't try to push him to a side and say, hey, you know what? He told me inflation is through the roof. He essentially spouted the same lines that we hear coming from people who are fed up with it. And this guy's not even legal, but he understands what's happening and he sees the degradation of our country. And my mind was honestly just blown, man. I was just like, wow, like I got goosebumps thinking about it, because everything he said, he talked about inflation. He talked about open borders, how they're letting anyone over. And I asked him, I said, who exactly is coming over? Because I see the videos, where you see a lot of men from, Middle Eastern and Africa and countries, et cetera, whatever. And he goes, you don't really see any Latin people. The Mexicans don't want to come over here right now, he said. He goes, I'm bringing my kids over because I've lived here for over 10 years now. He goes, it's all men from Syria, from the Middle East. And this is the guy who's done that crossing many times. So that to me confirmed what I had been seeing on the news, which is incredibly, scary.
It's unbelievably scary. So wait, this guy wasn't legal and he's talking, but he sounds like he has way more respect for America than most Democrats.
I mean, he came here because he loved America and he loves living here.
Yeah.
Conversely, you have people who are born here but hate the country they live in, have never traveled anywhere, have never lived anywhere, don't even understand other cultures, only what they see on YouTube or from their leftist friends.
I mean, my thought would be, why don't we send them there? Why don't we start a GoFundMe or a Give, Send, Go, and just say, hey, why don't you go to Palestine? Why don't you go protest? Why don't you go to, China? Why don't you go to Venezuela? Some of these like crazy communist countries, and just see how it is. Don't go to the touristy parts. Don't do that. Go see how people live and then come back. Whenever I've gone abroad, whenever I get back to the US, I'm not kidding. I always kiss the ground, because I'm so freaking thankful that I'm back in the US. I love traveling overseas, right? In the last couple of years, I've been to Peru and Indonesia. It's been amazing experience. But I love America because of all the freedoms that we have. I don't know. I'll get off my soapbox, but it just makes me so frustrated that these freaking nerds are trying to just be so smart and say, oh yeah, no, America's supremacy is bad. No,
look,
stop.
Kids always think that they know more than anyone. I was like that. But the difference was I went and I traveled. I backpacked for 5 years around the world. So I really experienced it. And you are very grateful when you get back to your, to the US. One of the things that you don't even really think about is just something small, but it's the water pressure. The water pressure here is great. And I remember when, so if you go to other countries like India, Thailand, you name it, the water pressure it's a trickle. And you come here and it feels you just so refreshed taking a shower. And that really actually makes you feel a certain way. It makes you feel clean. And when you feel clean, you feel better, right? When you haven't showered in a few days or you can't get a good shower, it literally makes you feel kind of frustrated. Just like when you don't cut your nails for a while, all these things go into how you act, right?
Mm-hmm.
All these little subtleties that never get spoken about. So I remember a few years ago when Trump was talking about how they want to turn the water to a trickle. Remember that? He was talking about how they want to make toilets, they want to turn down the water pressure. I heard that, and Trump was, people were making fun of Trump saying, oh, why is he so focused on, this water pressure stuff? And he was saying, yeah, they're going to make it so you can't even flush a toilet. You have to flush 10 times. But it was something very subtle that I understood because I've lived in countries like that where there's really no water pressure. So just small things like that, make you appreciate coming back here. So what's interesting, the point I wanted to make is these people, like for instance, the gentleman that I was talking to, he came here because he loved America and he's lived other places. You have people here that hate America. I've never been anywhere else. It doesn't make any sense. And that's not just people on the left, on the right as well. You have people who are very, very racist, who have never traveled or really met people of other cultures and are basing everything off what they see online. And if they just met people, like real people, sure, there's bad apples with every race. I mean, every race has bad apples, right? But yeah, it's cool. Everyone's different. You go and you experience their culture. and you come back and you appreciate it, but you appreciate being home.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. These kids need to go travel and not go to the Four Seasons in Bali. They need to go to Jakarta. They need to go to like I don't know. I just
Real places with real people,
yeah.
off the beaten track.
And so, like coming from Seattle, there's all these people that are still enamored with Seattle, still enamored with like you could take any big city. They're still enamored with LA, still enamored with New York, still enamored with Portland or Chicago or whatever city it is. And it just doesn't make sense.
It doesn't.
Like, you're living in this pigsty of a city, and then
even the Salvadorian president Bukele, he came out and he was just like, I don't know if you saw the video, but he's like, there's cities. He goes, we're a third world country, and there's cities I wouldn't live in, like in America, like Chicago. He's like, Chicago is a dump, and he said something very true. He said it's coming from the inside.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, whoever is doing this is destroying your country from the inside.
Well, do you think that's maybe why they're trying to monitor hate speech in New York City? Because they're trying to stop people from criticizing the government for destroying their own city?
That could very well be it. I mean, I think there's a lot of benefits that they get from destroying free speech. That's one of the big ones. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So, guys, I just want to make sure that if you're watching us, we're going to try to do this daily. That is the goal here at Breakaway USA. We try to arm people with the tools to fight the degradation of culture in the U.S. for people who love the Constitution and the rule of law and just normal life and are tired of the shift in culture and values that are trying to be pushed on us by certain players. There's a lot more of us normal people than there are of those fringe minorities. Even though the media wants you to think that the minority is the majority, they are not. So I did want to thank everyone for being here today. Our socials are breakaway_USA everywhere. You can find us, and we will see you next time.